So you're a founder. You've got the big idea. You've got the drive. And then, finally, someone believes in you enough to write a check. That excitement, it's electric. And to get that cash in the door fast, you reach for the simplest tool out there, the safe. It's literally designed for speed, so you can get back to building. But what if that speed comes at a price you just can't afford to pay? Let's get into it.
And that right there, that's the real problem with the safe. It feels like a simple handshake, a quick deal, but the consequences, oh man, they can be incredibly hard to undo. We're going to break down exactly how this seemingly simple piece of paper can end up costing you a huge and, sometimes fatal, piece of the very company you're pouring your life into.
So what is a SAFE really? Well, it stands for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. Basically, an investor gives you money today, and in return, they get the right to buy shares in the future. Usually that happens during your first big, priced funding round. And what makes it so attractive is there's no interest, no maturity date, it's just meant to be fast and totally frictionless.
And yeah, that speed, it creates this incredible illusion of no strings attached. It feels like free money, right? You don't have to give up a board seat, there's no tough valuation to negotiate right now. But here's the truth, safes are anything but free. They just delay the cost. And when that bill finally comes due, it's like discovering this massive hidden burn rate you never ever accounted for. And trust me, it can sink your entire price round.
So that brings us to our first big bucket of mistakes, the hidden math. These are the kinds of errors that just quietly pile up in the background. They directly hit your ownership in ways you might not even see. That is, until you're at the negotiating table for your next round and all your leverage has just vanished. Okay, so the first trap you can fall into is stacking way too many safes. You know how it goes. It starts innocently enough. You take 50,000 here, 100,000 there. It feels super flexible, like you're just staying lean and extending your runway. But what you're forgetting is one absolutely crucial detail. They all come due at the exact same time. Every single safe is a promise for a piece of your company, and when you finally raise that big round, all those promises get cashed in at once. And this is when the shock hits. You're sitting there thinking you still own, I don't know, say 60% of your company. But then, after all those small safes convert, you suddenly see your slice of the pie is way, way smaller than you thought. The new investors are happy, your early investors own a much bigger chunk than anyone planned for, and you're the one left standing there just wondering, what in the world just happened?
Next up is one of the most common and honestly most dangerous points of confusion, the valuation cap. So many founders hear $5 million cap and they think, awesome, my company is officially valued at $5 million. But that is absolutely not what it means.
Here's the thing you have to get. The cap isn't your valuation. It's a ceiling on the price for your investor. It protects their upside, not yours. So let's say you go out and raise your next round at a stellar $20 million valuation. Your investor? They still get to buy their shares at the price set by that $5 million cap. It's a massive discount for them and a massive, often totally unexpected, dilution event for you.
And this rabbit hole goes even deeper. Let's talk about another really subtle but critical detail, the shift from pre-money to post-money safes. Back in 2018, Y Combinator updated their standard documents. Now, it sounds super technical, but the impact this little change has on your ownership is enormous, and a lot of founders are still getting caught completely off guard.
See, with a post-money safe, the investor's ownership percentage is calculated after their money is already in the bank. So, a $1 million investment on a $10 million post-money cap, well, it doesn't just get them a piece of a $9 million company, it guarantees them exactly 10% of the company, full stop. It makes the dilution really predictable for the investor, but dangerously easy for you, the founder, to give away way more than you ever realized.
Okay, so it's not just about the numbers. There are traps literally hiding in the legal language itself. These are the clauses that founders, eager to get that signature and get back to building, often just skimmed right over. But they can have explosive consequences down the road.
So a classic one you'll see is the Most Favored Nation Clause, or MFN. It sounds completely fair, doesn't it? It just says that if you give a future investor a better deal, this early investor gets that same better deal too. Seems harmless. But let's see how this one little clause can create a domino effect that you just can't stop.
Just watch how this plays out. You give investor A a $10 million cap with an MFN. A little later, you're in a tougher spot, and you give investor B a $5 million cap just to get them in the door. Well, the moment you sign that second deal, boom, the MFN is triggered. Investor A's cap automatically drops to $5 million, which effectively doubles their potential ownership without them lifting a finger. You just gave away a huge chunk of your company completely by accident.
And all of this stuff,
It leads to mistake number 5, having absolutely no plan for how these different safes will actually convert into real equity. Founders so often think, we'll just figure it out when we get to the priced round. But by then, it's too late. You have this tangled mess of different caps and discounts and MFNs, and it can bring your fundraising process to a grinding halt.
And the fallout from this mess? It's brutal. A messy cap table just kills all the momentum you've worked so hard to build. It means spending tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees just to untangle everything. And worst of all, it scares away the serious professional VCs you're trying to attract. They see chaos, and they walk away.
You know, this brings us to what might be the biggest mistake of all. And it's not about math or legalese, it's about mindset. It's the strategy gap. It's the difference between raising money out of desperation versus raising money as part of a deliberate, thoughtful plan to build something huge.
Look, when you're running out of cash, it is so easy to feel like you have to say yes to whatever an experienced investor suggests. An angel investor proposes a cap, throws in an MFN clause, and you just agree because the alternative is missing payroll. You're reacting, not leading. But every single term you agree to without fully understanding it is just another brick in the wall that can eventually block your path to success.
And that's why this next point is so critical. Safes are a tool, and a really powerful one at that, but they should be used to execute a strategy, not as a way to avoid having one. If you're using safes because you don't want to have that hard conversation about valuation, you're just kicking a very, very expensive can down the road, and you're only making the problem bigger.
And that brings us to the final mistake, which is really just a huge missed opportunity. You see, smart founders don't just use safes to get cash, they use them to build leverage. Each check you tape should be a strategic move, not just a patch to stop a leak. It should bring you not just capital, but an investor who can open the door to your first big customer, or maybe introduce you to the perfect Series A lead investor when the time is right.
So, okay, after all that doom and gloom, what's the fix? How do you actually use SAFE the right way and stay in control of your company's destiny? Let's walk through the playbook.
First, start with a strategy, not with desperation. Know exactly how much you need and why long before your bank account is running on empty. Second, you have to model every single safe's impact on your cap table. Use a tool or even just a detailed spreadsheet. Do not trust the math in your head. Third, keep your terms as consistent as you possibly can. Avoid that MFN domino effect at all costs. Fourth, build a brain trust of experienced advisors and lawyers. And please, don't be afraid to ask them the dumb questions. That's what they're there for. And finally, plan for all scenarios, not just the best-case dream of a massive next round.
Because at the end of the day, the way you raise your very first capital sets the tone for your entire journey as a founder. It shapes your ownership, your control, and your eventual outcome. You don't have to be perfect, but you absolutely have to be intentional. Which really just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. As you get ready to take that next check, ask yourself this. Is this a strategic step toward building the future you envision? Or is it a shortcut that's quietly costing you that very future?